It's the reason so many of us got into home recording. While we may have had visions of recording some major, massive production, what we really wanted to do was to be able to knock out an incredible sounding guitar vocal recording. A few weeks ago, my friend Jeremy
Casella here in Joe Gilderland.
Ooh.
Yep.
Asked if I would record an acoustic project for him.
Well, you were kind enough to work with me today on recording 5 acoustic versions of some album tracks from my last record for everyone who supported my Kickstarter campaign and back a few years ago. That I'm finally, this last little piece was a acoustic project that I promised to people as a thank you after the record was done being promoted, and so that's what we were doing today, and I think we got some good stuff.
If you don't know Jeremy already, he's a fabulous musician and songwriter. Here's what his latest album sounds like if you play all the songs at the same time. But seriously, he is one of my favorite artists ever. Here's actually a song from his latest album that we mixed over in Dueling Mixes a while back. I've known Jeremy for a while, but we've never gotten to work together on anything music related. So first of all, I was super stoked to get to work on something with him. And secondly, I've been wanting to review and test this new microphone from Roswell Pro Audio, and this was the perfect chance to do it. So last week, Jeremy came over and we got to work. Let's talk a little bit about the technique and my approach to recording a guitar vocal performance. First of all, why go live with it? Why record them both together instead of having the person play the guitar first and then sing the vocal on top of it? That's a completely legit way to go, and we certainly could have done that, but that was not what Jeremy wanted at all. He wanted to perform the songs and to capture a moment. Now, while you can certainly capture something great doing it the overdub way, there's something special that happens when a musician has their instrument and are playing and singing their hearts out. It's a special moment, and we get to capture that if we record it live. Obviously, there are downsides to recording it live. If he misses a chord or sings a note wrong, you really can't go in and overdub that, punch that out, tune that vocal. You really are limited in what you can do once it's recorded. But for me, the plus side, if you got a great musician, which Jeremy's fabulous, the plus sides far outweigh any downsides that might be there. Now, if you're gonna record a live performance of someone singing and playing guitar, you can do it, in my opinion, one of 2 ways. You can do it with 1 microphone, or you can do it with 2. The 1 microphone works. I've done it before. It's a little more organic, and you lose a little bit of control, but you don't have to worry about things like phase issues. The problem with using 1 microphone, let's say this is the microphone and I've got a guitar here. Hang on. Boom, a guitar magically appeared in my hands. Let's say I'm sitting and playing guitar. If you want to capture both with a typical large diaphragm cardioid pattern microphone, you got to put the mic a little ways away so that it captures both my voice and also the guitar. If we get the mic over here really close to my voice, perhaps where you would normally mic a vocal, then you're missing the guitar and you're not going to hear much. Same thing, if you get it in a position that picks up a great sound on the guitar, you're not going to pick up the vocal at all. So you sacrifice probably the best tone for the sake of using 1 microphone and capturing everything, and it's probably going to, well, you're not going to have any phase issues, but you lose out just a little bit. For me, the other big deal is having the microphone out here so it's far enough away where it can see my voice and my guitar. You lose intimacy that way. First of all, it's going to pick up more of the room, which may or may not be a bad thing. Secondly, there's something special and intimate about having a microphone right up here on the vocal. Once it's this far away, it will never sound like it does up here. Same thing on acoustic guitar. If you're wanting an intimate, especially with somebody like Jeremy, finger-style performance, having the mic this far away just, to me, is a little bit lacking. So since Jeremy was going to perform fingerstyle, a lot of fingerstyle guitar, and even the strumming stuff was going to be without a pick, I opted for using 2 microphones, which is the way I prefer to work whenever I record a guitar vocal performance anyway. So here's my approach. I've been doing this for years and I've always gotten good results, so I just keep doing it. Vocal mic first. This is technically the actual mic that we used. The idea here is to position the microphones in such a way that obviously you get a good sound, but also you get the most rejection from the other instrument that's playing. So for me, that involves turning the mic upside down and placing it down below the singer and having it facing up towards his mouth. So that means the mic is going to be more like this instead of like this, which is kind of how we normally mic up a vocal. So it's down here, pop filter in front. If you look at it, now that it's right here, it's not seeing very much acoustic guitar. It's still gonna bleed and pick up the guitar, but it's gonna pick up the voice a lot more. The other microphone for the acoustic guitar, I do the exact opposite. Instead of having it kind of out here in front and getting just a good picture of the guitar, I move it a little bit closer, which will be a little boomier, but in this instance, that was a good thing because he was playing so softly, I wanted a big, warm, full sound. But I'm also gonna bring it up higher than I normally would and then angle it down. So just like the vocal mic is angled up, I'm angling the guitar mic down in an attempt to block out some of the vocal from getting picked up by this microphone. At the end of the day, the two, when you blend them together, this one should be predominantly the voice, this one should be predominantly the guitar. There will always be bleed. You'll never get rid of bleed. However, you'd be surprised how much isolation you can get if you play around with that positioning a little bit. Now, I've mentioned this a couple times so far, the idea of there being phase issues between the 2 microphones. Anytime you put more than one microphone on a source, the sound is going to hit those microphones at slightly different points in time. What happens when that happens? Sometimes that can cause the sound to sound thin or hollow or just plain weird. When using 2 microphones on a guitar vocal, obviously you want to avoid as much phase problems as you can. One way to really check that's super easy and kind of lets you, it's kind of a dummy's guide to phase that lets you know if you're on the right track. Once you get the microphone set up, record something and then flip the phase of one of the microphones, either on a preamp that you have or in your software. If you have a plugin that has the 0 with the line through it, that's the polarity switch or the phase switch. Just flip that on one of them. If you've got them in a decent position, when you flip the polarity, it's going to start to sound thin. When you're listening to both microphones and you flip the polarity of one, if it sounds thinner and bad, the microphones are probably in a good position. If you flip it and it sounds better, you probably A, either leave it flipped, or B, reposition the microphone so that without flipping any polarity or phase, it sounds as good as possible. For me, I got lucky. I had the microphones fairly close together, which, you know, they weren't right on top of each other, but they were pretty close. And then as I was listening to Jeremy play, I had him running through a couple of PreSonus preamps, and each of them has a phase switch on them. So as he was playing, I flipped the phase and it started to sound awful. It was all upper mids, all guitar string noise, no low end at all. I flipped the switch back, it sounded big and warm and full, and that was it. That was the extent of my phase checking. We left it alone and went from there. Jeremy is one of those musicians who really wants to connect with his audience, and he plays a lot of house shows. So concerts in living rooms with a small group of people, sometimes without a PA at all. So he's standing there with his instrument and that's all you hear. It's a really cool experience. If you've never gone to a house show or held one yourself, I encourage you to do it. It's a really fun experience and it's very different from a typical concert in a good way. What Jeremy wanted to do with these recordings is to essentially capture that sound and that vibe from a house show. So when he plays a house show, he stands up there with his guitar, no pick, and he just plays his heart out, and it creates this really cool connection and moment with those fans. He wanted to capture that with these 5 songs, and I believe we were able to do it. I set up the microphones in such a way that we could hear the guitar well, we could hear his voice well, and then he could also move around and kind of play to the room, which is what he wanted to do as well. The only way to really make that happen is to not have the microphone so close that if he moves just a little bit, you lose his voice entirely. So I tried to keep the microphones a little bit farther away so there's a little more forgiveness when he turns his head to sing something, or if he gets a little off from where he was originally positioned, it still sounds pretty consistent and still sounds pretty good. For most of the performances, pretty sure he had his eyes closed and was just playing. And that's what you want. You want him to be in the moment, and then our job as the mic setter upper people is to just capture that well. So that's my simple but effective approach to recording a live guitar vocal performance. Jeremy was kind enough to let us listen to some of the tracks from that session, and I will play those for you now. These are the raw tracks. I'll actually remove all plugins from them so you can just hear what it sounds like raw, because that's what we're talking about. Obviously, I went in and did some EQ and a little bit of compression and kind of tried to be hands-off as much as I could. Actually, let me be real with you. The first round of mixes I sent to Jeremy, I compressed it too much. I got too happy, too handsy with the compressor to where it just sounded over-compressed, over-processed. It didn't sound natural. Jeremy, being the professional that he is, wrote me back, sounds a little bit too squished. To which I went back and listened and said, yep, he's right. So I kind of scratched my whole mix, went to just a little bit of EQ and then one compressor, just compressing everything a little bit, and it sounded much more natural and much more appropriate for the music. One last thing before we listen. Big thank you to Matt McGlynn at Roswell Pro Audio for letting me use his microphones. In case you're not familiar with these, on the acoustic guitar, I use the Mini K47. This is a fabulous $300 microphone that sounds really good. If you've watched any of my past videos, you've seen this microphone on my voice. I really, really like it. It is a solid mic, inexpensive, sounds fabulous. Go get one. How's that for commercial? The other is the little bit fancier Delphos. Now the Delphos is another large diaphragm condenser. It has a few more bells and whistles. It's got a 10 dB pad and the ability to switch between an omni and a standard cardioid polar pattern. Great sounding microphone. If you remember, I mentioned it briefly in the video where I was doing the tracking session for my latest EP. We set up this microphone, which sells for, I think, $800. Set this one up against a $5,000, I think it was a Bach Audio 251, and I could have flipped a coin. It was that close. We ended up going with the Bach, probably because it was there and it was $5,000. How's that for honesty? But this microphone held its ground as much as a microphone that was over 5 times the price. Very good mic if you're in the market for a good sub $1,000 microphone that is a fabulous vocal mic. This might be worth checking out. I'll put links in the description. Go head over and check out Roswell Pro Audio. Thank you, Matt McGlynn. Beautiful microphones. All right, let's dive in and take a listen. You're gonna hear the raw tracks of both microphones. Then you will hear the guitar, which is the Mini K47. You'll hear that by itself. And then I will switch over and you will hear the vocal by itself, which is the Delphos. And then I'll let you hear them back together, and then I'll switch over to the final mixed and mastered version so you can hear what the final product sounds like. Thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. Check out Jeremy's music, leave a comment below, and that's it. Thanks.
For love, love has the patience to hear you out tonight. No hesitations to set itself aside. They're in your heart, so won't have to try. Faking a smile while you're falling apart. You've gotta let it all go. You've gotta let it all go. You've gotta let it all go. You gotta let it all go. Are you broken down, wrecked beyond repair? The night is nearly over, morning's almost here. They're in your heart, so won't have to try. Faking a smile while you're falling apart. You've gotta let it all go. 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 Are you broken down, wrecked beyond repair? Morning's almost here. Are you broken down, wrecked beyond repair? The night is nearly over. Morning's almost here.
One final thing before we take a listen. Big thank you to Matt McGlynn at Ross.